This is Dolores Cannon. I'm finally back from Europe and Asia, and I'll be reporting on that later in the month. But right now, we're broadcasting from the UFO conference in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. This is the 18th year that this conference has been going on. I've been involved with it since the very beginning. And my guest today, I believe, has been involved with it almost the whole 18 years.
Since 1947.
47. Maybe with this conference here.
Oh, yeah. No,
this conference, it's been 18 years. Okay, so I have asked one of the speakers, who's also a longtime friend of mine, if he will be our guest today. So the guest is Wendelle Stevens, and he's a longtime pioneer in the UFO field. And he has had a lot of experience with this, and I believe you're best known for your UFO picture collection, aren't you?
Yes, that's right. I have over 4,500 actual pictures of UFOs, flying objects.
Where do these pictures come from?
Well, when I was collecting such material for the Air Force, I was never allowed to keep anything. And so I started watching for reports in the magazines and newspapers, and when I would clip one out, I'd pursue it, go look for the experiencer, and talk to him about what happened and get his information, and then try to buy a copy of the picture. And I often got them given to me. And after I had several dozen pictures, it was easy. Now I had material to trade with others for what they had, and then I just kept trading up and trading up.
Well, what about fakes? A lot of people probably try to give you pictures that weren't real.
Oh yeah, you have to learn how to test them first. When I first started, the testing was pretty primitive. We only had photogrammetric testing, which meant examining it with microscopes. No computers
in those days.
We had to examine them with microscopes and try to determine from the batch patterns and the grain textures. You know, every batch of film has a peculiar grain that is recorded in the catalog of grain patterns.
Okay.
And if you look at any particular grain, or if you send it to Kodak, they'll match it with the patterns in the book and tell you exactly what month that film was manufactured and when it was shipped and things like that.
So that way you can date the film.
You can date the film that was used to take the picture.
But what about
that was primitive, huh?
What about people just manufacturing the actual UFO that it's not real?
No, all you can tell is with photogrammetric testing, all you can tell is that the image is either real or it's doctored. If it's a double exposure or a paste up or a reflected image or something like that, there are ways to test for each of those in photogrammetric testing.
So you have had cases of that?
Oh yes, we had cases of fakes and frauds, but they're pretty easy now. With computers, they're real easy to detect.
Oh yeah, I think it'd be really hard to detect now which is a fake or not, because the computers can do everything.
They can virtually everything, yes.
Okay.
But there are ways to beat that too.
Okay. Well, Wendelle, let's give your background first. You've been in this field a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, when I came back from the war, from World War II, I was reassigned back to Wright Air Development Center at Dayton, Ohio, Wright Field, as a test pilot, and I was working in the Flight Test Division, which is a branch of the Foreign Technology Division of the Air Technical Intelligence Center.
Okay.
And we were running test programs on our own new innovative aircraft, but we were also testing captured enemy aircraft that were sent back from Germany and Japan for us to try to study their characteristics and match them against ours, hoping to improve ours to defeat potential advantages that the others had.
As though they did have advantages. They had things that were better than ours in certain parts?
Yeah, we were always in the Air Force. I was always told that the enemy aircraft were inferior to ours. Don't worry about them because it's shoddy workmanship. The engines don't have the full power. They had a lot of failures and everything else. And when we tested their aircraft at the end of the war, we found out that wasn't true at all. Some of them were much better than ours. The Focke-Wulf, for instance, was a better made airplane. It had better performance characteristics. It could defeat ours in almost every aspect of combat of fighter operations. And the Japanese also had good aircraft.
I remember during the war it was always propaganda.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it was. We had to be the very best. But now we're beginning to find out that we didn't have it all.
That's right. We were not the best, and We only won because we had numbers in our favor. We had more present at the time.
Okay. But anyway, you were involved with the testing of the aircraft.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So another interesting thing, all pilots don't fly all the time, so we had to all have additional duties.
Uh-huh.
My additional duty was in the Air Technical Intelligence Center, where I had a desk and a bunch of translators that were translating the captured documents from the enemy countries that were being shipped back by the Liberty shipload, and they were coming into Wright Field by the train load and semi-van load. Our practice was when our troops overran a city, intelligence trucks would back their trucks up to every manufacturing plant and operation in the city, carry off all the records. They were all loaded in our trucks and taken to collection centers in Europe and then shipped back to the States here.
Wasn't a lot of that destroyed during the war with the bombing?
Well, a lot of it was, but whatever survived was brought here. So we left the country, the host country, or the former enemy country, with very little information in their files. So at the Air Technical Intelligence Center, I had a team of translators that were going through these documents one by one, and there were tens of thousands of them, looking for, we had save lists from the government and save lists from our aircraft aerotechnical industries, and we were working against all of these save lists and
looking. Means those were more important?
These are more important subjects to look for, and if, as we were reading the documents with our translators, if it wasn't on any save list, it was sent to a shredder and shredded and burned.
So how do you know what might have been important down the road?
Well, we didn't. And a good example is one time a map came across my desk in that operation, and this map was a geographical map of Greater Germany, and on that map were 9 Saturn-shaped symbols stamped on like with a rubber stamp in 9 positions in Greater Germany, which included some of Poland and Czechoslovakia and some of the others. And it was not on any save list, so little Saturn-shaped symbols stamped on it didn't mean a thing to us at the time. UFOs weren't even being reported then as such.
Oh, yeah, they were Foo Fighters and things like that.
Spirit phenomena, too.
Very little was out there.
Because it didn't fit any of the save lists, I rejected it, sent it to the shredder, and it was shredded and burned. And I had no idea what it was, but there was boxes of documents with it. Of course, that was all shredded and burned, too. None of that was on the save list. And then many years later, I encountered a book that was written by a German aerotechnical engineer, a refugee in Canada, called The Nazi UFOs by Mattern and Friedrich. And in that book was a copy of the same map that I had seen with the same 9 symbols on it, but this was a battle map with the array of the forces shown on the map. But the symbols were all there, and I recognized that it looked pretty much like the map that I had shredded years before that.
Did this explain what those symbols meant?
Well, no. In a book, in that Matter Frederick book, yes, those were Kugelblitz bases. Kugelblitz was the German V7 weapons research program, weapons development program, that was the flying disc.
Well, the V7s were the rockets. V8?
No, that was V1, V2, and...
the rockets that were shot over...
Those were V1 and V2 and up to V4. We knew we had save lists for V1, V2, up to V4. We didn't know that they went beyond that at the time. The discs were V7, and I don't know whether there were other V programs after that or not, but...
That's the only ones I ever heard about was the rockets.
Yeah, that's 1 and 2. So, we shredded, evidently... And with hindsight now, I think we shredded a lot of boxes of technical material on the German flying disc programs.
Of course, nobody was into UFOs then either.
Yeah, and we didn't have flying saucers, we didn't have UFOs, we didn't have a term for it or anything else, and all went to the shredder. So when I started research many years later, I discovered that there were such bases, and that the Germans had a well-managed and closely controlled program that was controlled entirely within the Nazi hierarchy of the German armed forces. They discovered it, and they kept it internally in a department they called the Entwicklungsstelle SSE4. And they controlled all the V7 weapons research development projects. There were these 9 bases. So I think we destroyed a lot of the evidence that we would like to have today
But how are you going to know there was so much? You know,
we didn't even suspect it at the time that we destroyed it. But then I have to wonder how much more did we destroy that might be of great value, and we didn't know it at the time, so it went to the shredder and was burned.
Well, we were talking before we started about the research I've done with the atomic bomb and my books on that, and that I've found that the Germans were working on atomic weapons too, and you said you agreed with that.
Oh yes, in the research that I did trying to find out more about the V7 weapons development program, it turned out that the Nazi Antrick-Lungstel SSE-4 also had an atomic bomb development project going. And they had succeeded in manufacturing and testing atomic bombs, including the first hydrogen bomb, and which they tested in a former German colony in Africa, by the way.
Oh, that's where they tested it.
That's where they tested it. And they had, at the time that Germany collapsed, we found 2 German bombs in underground facilities in the Harz Mountains, where the community was building the bombs was entirely isolated from the rest of from the outside world.
See, this sounds very much like the information I've got. And, you know, mine is past life regression, but I keep finding things no one knows. And it was about a laboratory that was supposed to be in the mountains.
All underground.
It was in the ground, and they said each person had a part of the formula. So no one knew the entire formula. But it turned out someone made a mistake, and the entire laboratory blew up. So I said, how do we know what was destroyed? And in the mountains, who would have even noticed anything? So you think this is probably true?
That may be true. What we did capture when that section of Germany fell into American hands, by the way, and we backed our trucks into the facilities there and hauled off the documents, we did find 2 complete bombs in
the underground bunkers?
Carefully secured underground bunkers. One of them was a big bomb, a uranium bomb, and the other one was a longer, more slender bomb that was a plutonium bomb. So the Germans had 2 atomic bomb projects going simultaneously. The uranium bomb and the plutonium bomb.
People always think we were the only ones, but this way that means we were both probably developing at the same rate of development.
They were ahead of us because
they
had theirs ready. Their bombs were all ready to drop, and they had a target date. In the records we found that they had a target date to drop one on New York and one on Washington, D.C. on the 19th of September of 1945.
That was after VE Day, though.
But it was only a very short time after VE Day.
So they were
very ready. Now, at the same time, the German Heinkel factory had built special bombers to make a one-way flight from Norway to the United States to drop these bombs. And then they would go to Cuba if they could. If they couldn't,
well, see, that's when the information I got when I was doing the research for my book on Hiroshima was that the bomb was developed to be used against Germany in the beginning. It was an experiment,